Hi everybody, Mark Washburn here, in this short video, I'll try to make it as short as possible. We're going to cover an awful lot of ground very quickly, but this is our standard protocol for dealing with green water in small ponds. We use a process that I term as stacking, if necessary, to combine resources or to combine tools to help combat the specific problem of green water in a small pond or water garden. So let's get started with this. The very first step that we will take in any action with a small pond is we want to accurately measure the gallon size, gallon capacity of that pond. All of our treatments and approaches will be dependent on getting a pretty accurate measurement of this reading. If you don't have this in hand, then you're guessing on dosages and on treatments, and with natural products that could lead to inconsistent results. With chemicals, that could lead to disastrous results. So get an accurate measurement of the gallon size. We have pond calculators on our site at pondalgaesolutions.com. You could also use a very simple calculation. Take the length of the pond in feet, the width of the pond times the width of the pond in feet times the depth of the pond in feet, and then multiply that by 7.85 to get a gallon measurement. And if it's an oddly shaped pond, it's okay. If you overestimate just a little bit or underestimate, that's okay, but just try to get a general idea of where you're at on this. The second thing is because green water is dependent on ample nutrients in the water, usually nitrates, we want to assess our fish loading, meaning we do not want to be overstocked in a pond for its capacity to hold fish safely. Koi need 25 gallons of water per inch of fish. Goldfish need 10 gallons of water per inch of fish, excuse me. And so if those numbers don't jive out, if we take 10 koi at 12 inches long, that's 120 inches of fish. We multiply that by 25 gallons. If we're over that amount, if that number's higher than our gallon capacity of our pond, then that could be part of the problem. Bring those fish numbers into line and you should see some improvements. Also, be sure not to overfeed. You want to watch closely and make sure uneaten food is not going to waste. And you also have to have adequate filtration. Evaluate your filtration for not only the gallon capacity of the pond, but also the fish load that it's under. This is all somewhat relatable, and one will offset the other, but if the filtration is not big enough, it simply won't do the job. One thing you can do immediately to try to help is to do partial water changes, 10% daily for a period of time, and see if that improves the condition. Sometimes by doing this alone you can lower the nutrient content of the water enough to create an environment where it's harder for the algae to grow and prosper. Again, it's very easy to do. Make sure that you dechlorinate when you're adding water to a pond from a municipal source. Because the sun also plays a major role in green water development, you want to provide or improve shading to the pond. Physical shading can sometimes be worthwhile, whether it's a physical structure that you build around the pond or over the pond, or shade sails or coverings, things like that you can provide. Any kind of shade is useful. We would also look to add a beneficial bacteria of some type at the suggested amount and in a routine basis as needed. You want to make sure that your counts get high enough so that they can start to offset some of these nitrates and outcompete the algae for the available nutrients. If they are underdosed, they will not work well. They have a high safety threshold on the high side, so be sure to use enough and use them for a period of 30 to 60 days, and that should give you an idea of whether you're going to get improvement. Also, add desirable plants. Surface plants like lotus and lilies are best for shading, and shading is a big factor. So if you haven't been able to create physical shading any other way, add desirable plants to where you're getting at least 30 to 35% coverage and possibly more on the surface. Underwater plants also help. They all help with nutrient absorption, again outcompeting the algae, so that's a good thing. We evaluate these steps for 60 days, particularly with the bacteria. I don't necessarily advocate using a bacteria endlessly. You don't have to do that in most cases. Some ponds do take a maintenance dose on a routine basis, but at least in terms of reducing or bringing about clarity to the water, reducing the green coloration, evaluate this process for 60 days and see how it goes. If you don't see improvements, you may want to consider trying another bacteria blends. They do work somewhat differently. You might want to add more surface plants. And again, keep working against the algae in multiple ways to try to outcompete it. You also might want to look at adding barley straw or a barley blend, concentrate, something in here which may be useful for inhibiting new algae growth. Sometimes that's worth doing. It won't work in every pond, but it can be combined with plants and it can be combined with bacteria to possibly good effect. Barley, by the way, comes in pellets, liquid, concentrates, as well as the actual barley straw. You also might want to try a flocculant. A flocculant binds single cell particles together. Some of these algae are so small that they pass right through your biofilter media. With a flocculant, and Acurel is the one that we recommend now, which is very organic, you get larger clumps created, and this allows your filter to work better and take more of the algae out. Also investigate a UV light or clarifier. UV light actually does the same thing or works similarly to a flocculant. It damages and kills algae cells as it passes in front of the ultraviolet light, and it makes them clump together. When combined with a high quality biofilter or a good filtering mechanism, oftentimes the algae will be filtered out much more efficiently and you'll get clean water pretty quickly with the proper application of a UV light and clarifier. Normally, taking these steps and using a UV light if necessary when it's properly installed, it will work on almost all green water issues. There are probably some outliers where it won't do it, but most of the time it works very well. The next stage for us would probably be chemicals. If chemicals are required, we would suggest not using a peroxide-based granule algicide, something like Green Clean, for example. One of the problems with Green Clean on green water is that it doesn't have a lot of residuality. When you apply it, you'll kill a lot of algae quickly, but most likely the green will come back in a matter of hours or days, and then you'll have to retreat again. It's not a very efficient way to deal with the problem of green water, and all of these peroxide-based rock and waterfall cleaners are very similar in that regard. They work better on string algae and they work better for spot control, but green water can't be treated that way. The second thing that we might look at is a non-copper based algicide, something like an Algae Fix that's been used by many people to good effect, may be worth trying. Again, care needs to be used when using any kind of these chemicals in a small pond, particularly with fish. You must follow directions closely, and also don't assume that the directions will include everything you need to know in terms of safety issues. If you have a very heavy algae bloom, if your pond is very green, you definitely want to make sure you use robust aeration whenever you're applying any kind of a chemical that's going to kill off most of this algae at once, because you can pull oxygen from the pond very rapidly and that will harm fish very quickly. So care needs to be taken when using any kind of chemical, but there are cases where Algae Fix has been used to good effect on green water. There are many other chemicals on the market that would also probably help, but you just need to do your due diligence and contact the manufacturer or the retailer and find out if it's a good fit for green water problems. So hope that information helps you. That's our step-by-step process. As you can see, there's about 11 steps, maybe 12 in this, where we simply do not give up on fighting green water problems. There is an answer somewhere in this mix at the right ratio of plants, good pond management, good bacterial use, among other things, that somewhere in the mix you'll find the answer to the problem and make headway with your pond. So hope this helps. Hope you have a great day where you are. Take care.